Hello, hello. Hey, everyone. Welcome in. Uh, I'm going directly from YouTube today and not from StreamYard. And my main goal for today is to remember to end the stream because last time I forgot it. And that's an embarrassing mistake to make. All right. Give me a shout when you come into the room. Let me know where you're joining from. Elisabeth Stitt here from Joyful Parenting Coaching. I work with parents of kids 2 and up, most especially with divorced dads who want to lead their homes with calm and confidence instead of chaos. Today, we are talking about something almost every parent I coach with brings up at some point or another, like, I just don't want to be the guy who yells. Maybe you grew up with a parent who yelled and you swore you would never do it. But when you get into high stress situations, especially if you're in the middle of a divorce, you've got a shorter fuse, you've got less bandwidth, you have more to manage during your parenting time. Either way, if you've caught yourself yelling and then feeling like garbage about it 5 minutes later, or you just reach that point where it's the occasional yelling, this one's for you. Here's the reframe about yelling, and I want you to take this one away. Yelling is just the external signal to you. I want it to be your like, whoa, what's going on here, right? It's not a parenting strategy in itself. It doesn't actually shift your kid's behavior. It may get in the moment, oh yeah, like, oh, I've got to do this. But over the long term, it doesn't get you any more peace, any more harmony, or any more cooperation. So yelling is not a tool that I want you to have in your toolbox. It's more like the smoke alarm going off and telling you that something in your parenting system either needs to be developed or it's broken. So let's walk through the 5 most common breakdowns that lead to yelling, and more importantly, what leading looks like instead of reacting. All right. Since I'm streaming live from YouTube today, I'm going to be able to keep an eye on those comments. So drop a comment to say, when did yelling show up the most for you? Is it after your kid has come back from being put to bed to ask for that 3rd glass of water? Is it getting your kids off of screens? Sometimes just getting them out in the door. Let me know what your yelling trigger is, and I'll see if I can weave that into what I'm talking about today. Okay, so when we are super stressed, when we're parenting on our own, like if we're divorced and we're parenting on our own, those times when you've got no partner to tag in with, there's no one to catch you before you reach your tipping point. If you're divorced, you might be seeing your kids less than you used to, which means every visit carries more weight. You want it to go well. So when it doesn't, when there's pushback, there's a meltdown, there's a kid testing a boundary, not only are you just losing your patience, but the stakes feel higher. And so your reaction can really grow and be bigger. All right, so let's go back to the idea that yelling doesn't come from being a bad parent. It comes from being a maxed out one, an overwhelmed one, and not having sufficient systems and routines and tools to keep you from getting to that place. Okay, this is not about shame. If you've been a yeller, I get it. It's about giving you the precursors, the upstream moves, so that Downstream, you just don't need to react as often because things are going more clearly. All right, breakdown number 1 is, do we have a lack of clear expectations? The first thing that sets you up for yelling is you're asking your kid to do something and they didn't actually know that you expected them to do that. So now they're reacting strongly because that doesn't feel fair to them, that you yelled at them about, or that you asked them to do something, but you feel like you have. And so there's this disconnect. And so not only are you irritated that they haven't done it, but you're like, hey, why haven't you done this? Why aren't you, I told you to do this. They're pushing back harder because they're like, no, you didn't. This happens constantly. We don't always see it because in our own head, the expectations feel obvious. Like, of course, you're supposed to put your shoes away. Of course, you don't get your screen until you've finished your homework. And even if these are clearly established rules, and even if you've gone over them before, kids are kids and kids are little and kids are still learning. So we need to make sure that we are super clear with our rules and our expectations. Parents are always surprised when I say, for example, my expectation when I went shopping with my kids was that we only bought what was on the list. They had to come back and check in with me. Like, I had to know where they were. They had to have like a hand on the cart unless they were specifically going to do something for me. And if they saw something that they wanted, we would take a picture of it, but we were not going to buy it today. I think my kid was 12 before I stopped reviewing those, what are our store rules, before we went into the room. So even though you may feel like this is the rule and you, of course, you should know it, chances are they need you to repeat it. Okay, so yelling shows up as, how many times do I have to tell you? Truth is, you got to tell your kids a lot of times. And you need to ask yourself, did I ever actually tell you? Like, clearly? In a calm manner? Did I check back for your understanding? Or did I just assume? Okay, so clarity. That's the breakdown number 1. Ironically, going the other way can be too many reminders. This one's sneaky because it feels like you're being responsible. You remind again, right? Shoes go in the cubby. Shoes. I said shoes. Shoes! And by reminder 4, you're not really reminding anymore. You're just getting louder and louder and louder. So here's what's actually happening. Every time you remind without actually following through and seeing that your kid has taken action, it's just sounding like wah, 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 wah. It's just noise, right? Which is why only the actual yelling penetrates the white noise that you've been producing. Hey, shoes, put your shoes in the cubby, shoes away. I said, remind you, don't forget, shoes in the cubby. So you've really accidentally trained your child to wait for the yell before they move, because that's the only reminder that you actually follow through on. So here's the leadership move. You say it once. Shoes in cubby. Now, ideally, if they don't go put their shoes in their cubby in that moment, you move in close to them and use your body to sort of physically block them from doing the next thing, to kind of like, oh, okay, shoes, and I'm going to do shoes. If not, the other idea is letting either the natural or logical consequence do the teaching instead of your volume. So maybe you've set up with your kids ahead of time. If I find shoes not in their cubbies, those shoes are going to go away for 24 hours, for, however long, depending on the kid and depending how often this has happened. If they can't then find their shoes the next time, that becomes a natural consequence. Like, but I wanted to wear those shoes. Yeah, well, next time you'll have them there. So no lectures, no fifth reminder. You've just set up ahead of time with them ahead of time. Shoes that don't make it to the cubby are going to go away and you're not going to be able to use them for a while. Now, you may shoot yourself in the foot with this, if you really need them to have a particular pair of shoes. But if you got backup shoes, then let them wear the backup, especially if they're a little small or a little uncomfortable. That's a good natural reminder. Like, oh, I want to make sure that my well-fitting shoes get put into the cubby. I know that this is hard to hear if you are a multiple reminder household. Like if you're used to saying it over and over and over like a broken record, and a lot of us are, start to see like if you can catch yourself on that second reminder. Like maybe you're like, hey, shoes in the cubby. And now you're finding yourself saying it again. If the kids are still in the vicinity, move in and kind of see if you can physically suggest to them like, oh, shoes in the cubby. If not, have you put your consequence in place? So now you just execute like, oops, I'm going to pick up these shoes off the floor. And instead of putting them in the cubby, I'm going to put them in a cupboard for the moment that's up high. All right, breakdown number 3 is a general lack of routines. And this is a big one. And honestly, a lot of the parents that I work with one-on-one, they just don't have, I call this the low-hanging fruit. Like when we have routines for things like shoes go in the cubby, that cuts down on a lot of problems, right? If I don't have any routine about shoes, then the shoes can end up anywhere, and I'm annoyed because they're in the middle of the walkway or the middle of the living room, and I'm tripping over them. But that still doesn't solve the problem of like, how do I find them easily the next time? Whereas when I have a place and a time and a system and a routine, shoes in the cubby, that's going to help my kids, and they're going to do it the same every time, right? Kids don't do well with ambiguity. And neither do we, actually, if we're honest. When there's no predictable rhythm, there's no predictable rule, everything becomes a negotiation. And here's the thing. When you don't have a system or a routine, some days the shoes are going to be like just far enough out of your pathway that you don't trip over them, and so you don't say anything about it. So the kid gets the message like, oh, that's okay. Like, you didn't get mad at me yesterday because my shoes were in the living room. But now today they've left them right in your pathway. You trip over them and you're mad. So now today you say something like, don't leave your shoes lying around. Not specific enough. Then we get negotiations and arguments about this is okay or this isn't okay. When we have a routine, and it's not about rigidity, it's not about we have to be a super strict family. It literally just makes us feel better because it takes us out of decision making in the moment. Like, is this an issue? Do I have to direct this in the moment? And especially when we have the what happens next as already established, like, if you say that screens are off at 7:00, and if you can't turn them off by 7, I'm going to come help you turn them off, then you are not negotiating, you're not asking, you're not yelling because you want them to turn it off. You've already agreed with them ahead of time. Hey, if 7 comes and goes and you can't turn off your devices on your own, I am going to come turn them off for you. That way, whatever it is, screens off, bath, lights out, you are not the random enforcer. Really, the routine is, because it's like the school bell ringing, right? We don't think of the school bell ringing like when I was a teacher and kids came in late, it was really simple. You come in as the bell is still ringing, you're on time. If the bell has stopped ringing, you're late. Like that's not me picking on you today. That's A or B. Either the bell's rung or it hasn't rung. If it's rung, you're late. Now, you might have a good excuse, that's a different thing. But in terms of this is the policy, it just helps us to keep going in the moment, right? And then you're just the guy who's moving things along and following the plan alongside your kid. A predictable rhythm and some clarity about these things that you end up yelling about, this is a part of what I call home culture. And that's really the foundation of stability that your kids carry with them, especially if they're going back and forth between two homes. But just in general, it's like, oh, this is what we do in this house. Okay, so I want you to pick one thing that you yell about, just one, and check and see if there's a routine that you could build around it. Not complicated, no chore charts, no long checklists, just a step or two at the same time or same place or the same expectation every time your kids walk in. All right, breakdown number 4 is not taking action until frustration explodes. So let's talk about the internal side of this, because so far we've talked about sort of the kids side and how they're showing up with expectations and reminders. But this one's really about you. Most yelling doesn't come out of nowhere. There's usually a build. Something happens, you absorb it. Something else happens, you absorb it. Then there's the straw that breaks the camel's back, right? So at that point, it's rarely about the specific thing. It's rarely about the shoes or the screen time or the back talk in the moment. It's about the 6 things that the kid did before that irritate you that you didn't actually address. And it could also be just how your day was and the 6 things that happened in your day. But let's at least hope that we have enough control as a parent on our good days we do, that when we get mad at the kid, we are mad because of the 6 things that they didn't do, not just things that happened to us. Okay, so you don't have infinite capacity, right? Like you are a pressure cooker. And when the pressure reaches a certain level, boom, you're going to explode. So our trick is to be self-aware enough and to learn when we are at a 5 or a 6 and not at a 9 or 10. Because by the time you get to a 9, really, you may feel like your only parenting choice left is to yell. So, like for me, I know it's a tight jaw. Like that's like if I am clenching my teeth, then I know that I'm headed towards explosion point. Figure out for you what it is. Is it are your shoulders up? Do you get that tightness in your back? Are your hands clenched? So when we're still at a 3 or a 4 or even a 5, usually we can process it a little bit and we can say, hey, kiddos, I am getting frustrated. I am feeling overwhelmed right now. I'm going to take a second. And this is fabulous opportunity for modeling, right? If you guys have been around with me long enough before, I love Daniel Tiger breathing. You do great big 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And yeah, you look kind of silly doing it, but when you set that up and you relax, the visual really kind of helps your kid also take that breath and it helps them relax. So That's, that's not a weakness. That's really exactly what you're trying to teach them, is that self-awareness, so that you can take a step towards self-regulation, which is what that breath does. Every time I do it, 5, 4, 3, 2. I feel, maybe you even felt it just as I did it in front of you. Maybe you even feel your blood pressure going down, right? A dad, a mom who can name your own rising frustration calmly is teaching the best lesson you ever can. And that is going to have your kids so much more willing to listen to you. Okay. Breakdown number 5 is one of my favorites. And that is not using your playfulness. And honestly, this is the one that most parents underestimate the most. Playfulness isn't the opposite of discipline. In fact, it's one of my favorite ways for avoiding the need for discipline in the first place. A huge number of standoffs with our kids, the ones that really turn into that yelling, can be completely dissolved with a moment of silliness instead of a direct power structure. Shoes are out in the middle of the floor. Make the shoes talk in a funny voice and say, "Help, help, I feel so lonely and unsafe out here. I wish somebody would just take me and put me in my cubby." Right? Kid won't get in the bath. Now the bathtub is a shark tank and you need a brave volunteer to go swimming with the sharks. It sounds simple, but playfulness interrupts the power struggle. And remember, play is our children's primary mode, right? That is always their preferred mode. So if we can infuse some silliness and some playfulness into it, you cannot be locked into a battle of wills with somebody who just made you laugh or smile. The less time you have with your kids, the more packed your schedule is. If you're a divorced parent, the more essential it is that we stay positive. And then in that case, playfulness isn't just a de-escalation tool. It's not just preventing the power structure, it's actually providing the connection. And that's it. That's the silver lining. Like, if there were ever gold when it came to parenting, it is connection, because honestly, our kids only cooperate with us because they want to feel connected. Unless they're cooperating because we're yelling at them and they're scared. And I know that that is not what you're hoping for. So if you've had a moment with your kids today that felt really stressed, where you were not showing up the way you wanted to show, before you go to sleep, I want you to just go, what could have I used to bring some more playfulness into this? Right? Could have I challenged them to how many giant steps? Do they want to take giant steps to go to the bathtub, or do they want to take baby steps? And how many do they think they can do it in? Or how many baby steps is it going to be? Right? That's more playfulness. It costs you nothing to try it. So see how you can do that one. Okay, let's review. What were our 5 places where we tend to break down in our parenting and we end up yelling? Number 1, unclear expectations. Say it once, say it clearly ahead of time, and get their check back on it, right? In fact, like using the shoe example, day after day after day, before we get out of the car, I'm probably going to say, what are you going to do when you walk in the door? And I really probably want to hear, shoes in the cubby, coat on the hook, unload, lunchbox. That's what it was in my house. And I'm going to have them say it before I let them out the door. Okay, number 2, too many reminders. I call this being a broken record, right? Wah, 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 wah. They're just hearing white noise. Say it once, use your body to move in and do it, or have a clear consequence and just follow on the consequence. Number 3, a lack of routines and systems that the kids know, and you train them on them, and then it's not a question of whether or not you're not doubting yourself. Did I tell you that? Because, yep, I told you every day for 4 weeks. So now I'm pretty sure you should have this. Number 4, exploding because you're at a 9 or a 10, rather than becoming self-aware and trying to catch yourself. Know what your signals are. For me, it's jaw and tension in my throat. Like if I'm talking like this, I know I'm headed towards a 10. And then number 5, being silly, right? We don't use that tool from our toolbox when it gets us so far. All right. Notice that none of these are about just don't yell or you need to be more patient, because that puts you in the willpower category. And right, if we had the willpower, we wouldn't be yelling. So we don't want to think about this as a willpower issue. We want to say, how can I set them up for success by letting my expectations be known? How can I reinforce my expectations by having a clear consequence and following through? How can I have consistent systems and routines so that, like Pavlov's dog, I come in the door from school, my shoes immediately go in the cubby, my jacket gets hooked up, I take my backpack and unload my lunchbox, right? We want that to be just like, I don't even have to think about it. My body is already in motion. Teaching ourselves to catch ourselves when we're earlier, that's learning our signals. And it's reviewing the day and acknowledging, like, okay, I yelled, what was going on for me? At what point could have I taken that deep breath and been in a new parenting place? Okay, so the whole shift is reacting to leading. If you're watching this and you're thinking about the last time you yelled and you're just feeling that gut punch of guilt, whoosh, throw that out the window. Okay? Don't worry about what we did in the past. You're here now. You've got some new ideas. Go be the parent that makes this actually work. If you're not getting notice of when I'm going live, the link is in the description of how to get notices about that. Would love for you to comment on a chat and leave me a note to say, what's the one idea that you're going to take away so that you can work on? And before I forget, I'm going to end the stream, and I will see you guys next week.